Hello, Adam. How are you?
Yes, my friend. How are we?
I'm all right. What have you been up to?
Not much, but just more of the same. Bit of work. Got back from Vegas in one piece as well, so that's always a moral victory. So everything's good. What about yourself, man?
Just slogging away, kids. Slogging away like you do. Consistency is the key.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
Uh, what do you reckon to this past week then?
A lot going on, man, isn't there? A lot going on from fights to announcements to to blagging. Obviously, it was last week, but I would like us to pick up on the top rank card on the Thursday Super Bowl with Lopez and whatnot. Did you catch much of it?
No, I didn't. What did you think to it?
I mean, the main event, again, I was there live. The main event was poor, for want of a better expression. It reminded me of the recent Shakur Stevenson fight.
Oh,
Um, the card was good in itself. Like, I've been high on Mason for a while, Abdullah Mason. He looked excellent. Obviously, a showreel knockout, but he looked brilliant from top to bottom. I thought Keyshawn Davis was good as well. It took him a few rounds to kind of not figure Pedraza out, but just to get the better of him. But to me, you can kind of tell that he's of that Crawford you camp, for want of a better expression. The two lads train together. He doesn't punch miraculously hard, but when he sees a finish, he goes for it. And that's what he did to Pedraza. I thought it was quite impressive. But again, obviously the big talking points are from the main event. I think Lopez he needs to have to steal one of your expressions, he needs to have a man in the moment, or a man in the mirror moment, because he's obviously massively athletically gifted, but he came up against Sandor Martin and the same thing happened. And he came up against Ortiz and they asked him afterward, what could you have done different? Um and he was very defensive and he said, like, the guy came to run, there was nothing I could have done more. His father agreed with him and stuff. But to quote Teddy Atlas, he always says the great ones find a way and the great ones found a way. Now, I think Lopez, I'm actually a big fan of his. I'm not just trying to dig him out. I think he can get back into that pound for pound discussion. But I think they need a shake up. I'm not saying for him to get rid of his dad because they obviously have a very, very strong relationship. But I think he needs to kind of hone the athletic ability that he's got. Because when lads are, for want of a better expression, when lads want to box and move, he's got no answers. He's punch variety goes out the window. He's not able to cut off the ring in a way that I think an elite level guy should. And it's all well and good having bad fights, but you can't come out afterwards and just say there was nothing more I can do. But what do you think, Paul?
well, they've just got to learn the craft, haven't they?
Mm, no, he definitely does. And again, this isn't me. There's a reason he's still with his dad. Obviously, I think if they had some sort of good cop, bad cop setup, I mean, what I think specifically they should do, you look at his talents, his explosiveness. When he's in a fight where he's fighting somebody that he matches up well, like a Comey, he closes a distance unbelievably well. But I think he would do very well under like a Freddie Roach. You look what Roach has done with, you go back and you look at like a Miguel Cotto, the human bulldozer, and obviously Pac-Man and these other guys. I think Roach kind of gets pigeonholed into, he's just a good offensive coach. But if you look at Jaime Munguia's last performance compared to the fight of the year against Derevyachenko, I thought defensively he looked a lot better. I thought he was more patient. I thought he kind of picked these spots better against Ryder, albeit a shot Ryder. But I thought, he took much less damage than he did in the previous fight. So I know Lopez and they're all based out in the East Coast. But I think while Freddie Roach is still doing it, and obviously he's getting on, and the poor devil's got Parkinson's, and you can see it in his hands. But I think they could do a lot with a bit of consulting from him. Um, Obviously there's a bunch of trainers you could name. I just think if you look at Lopez when he was down the division, he carried that power. He was a bit bigger generally than the other guys. But I think now moving up to 140, like I think if he fought like a Haney next, I think it'd be an easy night's work for Haney. But maybe Haney's the outlier because he's so good. I just think he has to make some changes if he's gonna make a dent. Like he's calling out Crawford in the cross and a catchweight fight, like being there live for that Ortiz fight. Ortiz is taller, but I thought Lopez looked really poor live in the clinch. He was kind of being moved around. And like Ortiz isn't overly strong. He's a big, tall, solid fighter. I just think if you look at what Crawford did against against Spence, where Spence was a perceived bigger man, and Crawford bullied him about the place. I think he would have an absolute picnic with Teo at the current state. So I'd be interested for your opinion on where he should go next, kind of in terms of fighting, in terms of training and whatnot.
Go fight Conor Benn. Put him out his misery.
Very good. Very good.
It's Conor Benn's situation. It's not going away, is it?
No way. And it won't. It's not going to go away in a hurry. But I think again, you and I've touched on it, man, about potentially them trying to cash him out. Surely Eddie Hearn, even if it is at 147, surely Eddie Hearn knows that Tank Davis would turn him into Swiss cheese, or maybe they're seeing something I didn't. Um, even the band that beat Algieri and Samuel Vargas and Van Eerden, even that guy, I just don't see a way how he beats Tank. I just think Tank's too technical everywhere. He's too good. He's too efficient with his shots. I mean, even when Benn was on the up and up, he was still there to be hit, you know. But he had that fear factor where they were less inclined to sit in the pocket with him. If you look at that Benn that fought Dobson, who's going to be scared near his weight to sit in the pocket with him? He's so hittable. He's there to be exploited. So I don't know. I don't know what's next for Benn. Like I know they're talking about Davis. I think it's just a ploy. I don't think it happens. I don't think Davis comes up to 147. And there's plenty of fights for like Davis. Davis doesn't need to come to England to make a boatload of money. He can make a boatload of money in America fighting a bunch of different lads. Even fighting, like, I'm not saying no names, but if he fought somebody like in the top 10 of any ranking that's not really that well known, he's still going to sell out. So I don't know. Like, what if you were to rate it 1 to 100? What do you think the chances are of Benn getting in with Tank, of the fight actually happening?
I'd say 50-50 in this day and age.
Do you?
Yeah, I would honestly. I'd say 50-50 in this day and age, and it'd have to be in America, wouldn't it?
I think so. Obviously, if he did come to the UK, there's plenty of boys would want to go see him. Rightly so.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of what he's been up to outside of the ring and all the rest, but we're here to talk about boxing. We're talking pure boxing. He's a wee pit bull. He's an absolute animal, in his box office. So I think he'd sell anywhere. But I don't know. And again, it's not trying to be a hater. Conor Benn doesn't really move the needle stateside, man. Honestly, even being there last week, obviously there's talk about this and that, but I don't think
His
Conor
name
Benn.
on everybody's lips, Adam, when you were out there in Vegas.
Not. You know what, Russ? The the boxing scene out there, at least for that fight, was weird because it was Super Bowl week. Obviously, there's a lot of people in for the football. They're getting comp tickets. They're just going to the boxing to kind of dress up. Um, a lot of people in the main event left after 3 and 4 rounds. They were just getting fed up because it was like a lackluster fight. But the point I'm making is there was a lot of casuals, at least that I bumped into. Um, and he's not a name amongst the casuals at all. So I don't know. The only scenario I see where I'm not saying Tank ever needs Benn, but the only advantage I think that Benn kind of brings to the table is if they're going to hold it in the UK. Because, then they can talk about the O2 or bigger or whatever. And, you've got people actually following Benn within the UK that are going to come to the fight. I don't think he brings much to the table if it happens in the US in terms of, putting asses in seats. So I don't know. I'd be very surprised if that fight happens in the US. Much more surprised than I would be if they got it on in the UK. But I don't know, mate. For the life of me, I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible, like you said. Should we look at YouTube boxing and all this that goes with it now? But I would just be surprised. There's a lot of good, proper potential fights for Tank where he's at weight wise. I don't know. I think this is just again more deflecting. I think they're trying to get headlines out about Benn that aren't, clomiphene related. Um, and I think now if you look at it even on Talk Sport, all the rest, when Benn comes up, what are people talking about? They're talking about Tank Davis. So I think it's cute from Matchroom and Mr. Hills, but I don't see the boys getting it on.
Where does all this leave Christopher Eubank Jr.?
Brilliant question. Um, I think that I think it was Spencer Oliver recently, he was saying that, he's all about the belts now and he's talking about the belt. Apparently that Janabek fight has been sitting there on a platter, even before the whole beefy scenario. So if he wanted to fight for a belt, I don't think he would have a problem doing it. In terms of big fights for him, I don't know, man. Benn's obviously the big one. Like Eubank's kind of similar. Eubank Jr. is similar to Benn in the sense that in the UK, even if people think he's washed up or he's not past his best or he's inactive, people will still go out to see him. As much as people will want to see him get knocked out because he's a character, and then obviously he'll have some support. It's all dependent on what he wants. If he wants gold, the fights are there. That Janabek's a tough cookie, so I don't think he'd be taking it in a hurry. But if he's looking for silver, I think it has to be Benn, really. Do you see many other big money fights for him outside of Crusher?
Oh, for Eubank.
Yeah, Chris.
Saunders.
Mm,
Canelo
fair enough.
at 168.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised they've not wheeled Eddie Hills out. Start talking about that one now. It's about only name not linked to him.
I can see the Canelo fight. Yeah,
How many has Canelo and Golovkin beat from England?
Mm,
A lot, isn't there?
a lot. And even his father, Senior, has said the only fight he sees for him, even with their relationship and whatever state it's in, he said the only real fight he sees for him is Canelo. I think that would tick a lot of boxes. I think obviously it would generate the money that Junior wants. I think it would provide Canelo with, I'm not calling Eubank Jr. full on cannon fodder, but I don't think he's at the level of Canelo. So I think it would be a mostly easy win for him. I don't know if he stops him, but I think he would, outclass him. I don't see Saunders ever fighting. I'm not going to say ever fighting again. Um, from the rumors and wee things you see of him popping up, he'll do well to make 168 even anytime soon, pal. No?
Yeah, he's got a problem with eating, hasn't he, Billy?
It seems that way. Look, in terms of skill and boxing, he's absolutely excellent. We've talked about that before. I like his style. But he wasn't that active at the best of times, and now he's been out for a good while, and he's coming off obviously a horrific orbital break as well. I don't know. I just don't see. If he's not going to fight at 168, is there any point coming back, going up higher? I don't know, mate. I don't see, unless there's a massive change of heart and mindset. I can't see Billy Joe out in 2024, and I think if he doesn't get out in 2024, he may likely never get out again. But I'd say he'll fancy Eubank Jr. I think skill for skill, he'll fancy himself 10 times out of 10 against him. So if there's one fight to get him out, that'll probably be it.
Well, BoxRec have got Eubank as number one middleweight,
Hmm.
Canelo number one super middleweight. So why don't they just fight at super middle?
Mm, I think that ranking's BS. Um, I mean, the guy he's 1-1 with his last opponent, Eubank Jr., and you could argue. I know Smithy came out with excuses after the fight, but for whether it was training, overtraining, undertraining, injury, um, it was one of Smith's, if not his worst performance. It was one of his worst performances. Um, what about all this talk about these Charlo brothers? What about one of them fighting Eubank Jr.? Is Charlo Senior not champion in recess? I.e., could they not put the 160-pound title? I mean, that would kind of cover two spreads. You're fighting a world champion, albeit a disputable one in my opinion, and Big Charlo. But the fight would also do well enough. Um, I don't know. I think because like again, more I know I'm kind of going off topic, but more smokes and mirrors out of Canelo. He said yesterday he's going to fight an American, which a lot of people think whittles it down to Canelo, or excuse me, to Big Charlo, Jamal, or to Terence Crawford. I don't see the Crawford fight happening on short notice. Obviously, it's two weight divisions. I don't see Bud just randomly jumping in without, properly trying to put on the weight like Usyk did.
Yeah.
And like Canelo Charlo is just, to me, it's not a fight. Like I know it'll sell, I know it'll make money, all this, but even if Big Charlo was at his absolute best peak, mental health in good shape, training like an ox, it would be one thing. But this fella's been on the couch for one reason or another, for 2 years, and then he fought last time out against Benavidez Jr., um, David's brother, and couldn't make weight. And like I know he stopped him, but I don't know, mate. I don't see that as a challenge for Canelo at all. What are your views on that potential fight?
Oh, Canelo Benavidez.
No, no, Canelo, Jamal Charlo at 168.
Canelo Charlo. Canelo will run over him.
Absolutely.
I want to see Canelo in a test.
Yeah,
Benavidez or Eubank Jr.
yeah. I heard you. I think it was yesterday. You were saying you're not, or you weren't too keen on Canelo, or maybe you were just saying you don't believe the talks, but you were saying that you don't see Canelo Munguia. Um, this fight in May 4th is Mexican Independence Day, obviously a massive holiday in the States.
Yeah.
Massive holiday, obviously in Mexico. Why not fight Munguia now on the 4th?
No.
Like I kind of understand. We think he's ducking Benavidez. I'll go on record and say that. I understand why he doesn't want to fight him next.
Is he
But
ducking gear?
that's the question, man. And I'll be honest, right? I think if Canelo and Munguia fought tomorrow, even on Munguia's last performance, I think Canelo wins because I don't think Munguia stops him. And if the scorecards are anyway close at all, they're going to give Canelo the nod. Um, and I don't. I think Munguia still has some filling out to do in terms of like fully being there at the weight. So if Canelo is still any part of the roadman killer he asserts himself of being, why not take Munguia now? Why not pull a mini Floyd Mayweather, what Floyd did to him? You know, Munguia doesn't have experience at that top elite level. I know he's what 44-0 or whatever, and I respect him for taking on a bunch of fights, but he's not proven at that top elite level. And I think you saw that with Caleb Plant when he went in against Canelo. Caleb Plant's a very skillful guy, got skills to pay the bills, but you could see that lack of experience the first time he got, or the only time he got in with Canelo. I think it'd be a good time for Canelo to fight Munguia. I think with a holiday that the fight would be on and it'd sell unbelievably. You have Mexico, you kind of have the hardcores in Munguia versus the casuals in Canelo. I think it's the only fight to make. I think it's an absolute travesty that they're not making it. But I think that kind of fits into the narrative that we have that Canelo doesn't want the toughest fights. at any time.
Yeah. So Canelo and picks them, doesn't he?
Big time. Yeah.
It's been going on far too long with him, hasn't it, really? You
It
think?
ha oh, completely, man. Completely. I mean, even the jump, like we've talked about the Kovalev fight before, him being past his best, but even the jump to light heavy, I think there was very specific criteria of why he was calling out Bivol and not Beterbiev. Like he didn't. I know you can say whatever about the rankings, but he didn't really say, like, I want the hardest hitting, toughest son of a gun at light heavy. I think he took the Bivol fight because he based a lot of it on how he looked maybe against Richards. Obviously, he's been knocked before, and he bit off more than he can chew. But do you remember in the lead up to that fight against Bivol, even before they got in the ring, he was saying he wanted to move up after he beat him and fight Alexander Usyk, and Eddie Hearn was getting behind it. I mean, what planet are we living on, Paul? Can you imagine Usyk against Canelo?
Jesus. It'd be a bloodbath,
That's a
wouldn't
thought. Oh, completely. Completely.
it?
Obviously, look, it's never going to happen now, but
Do you remember when Tony Bellew fought Usyk?
hmm
People actually thought he was in the fight or bossing it. Usyk looked to me like he was just setting traps and just playing with him. Did you, or am I watching a different fight?
no. It's funny you bring that up. I actually went down an Usyk rabbit hole over the last few nights on YouTube. Very happy to go down that rabbit hole any time. But I was just watching him, and I watched that fight back. And when I was watching it live, I think this happens a lot in boxing. I think when a matchup is made where on paper one lad is supposed to absolutely dust the floor with the other, I think when the inferior lad on paper starts to have any sort of success, people jump on it and they say, "Oh my," you know what I mean? "Oh my God, Tony Bellew's in this fight. He's doing this, he's doing that."
Yeah,
So when I was watching it live at the time, I was like, "Jesus, Tony's doing a lot better than I thought he would."
yeah.
Um, but when you watch it back, like you say, was Usyk ever in trouble mentally or physically?
No,
No, he just wasn't. And that's not me being trying to be a knob towards Bellew. But he just wasn't, in my opinion. Again, I thought Bellew actually did better than I thought he ever would in parts. But that's something that needs to get squashed where, these lads go into fights and just because they do better everyone's like, "Oh my God, it was a great performance." Like it actually brings me on to my next point very, very well. Brings up the topic of our favorite greasy man, i.e. the Gad.
God,
He was
what's he been doing? Do tell.
well, I'm digging up the past a wee bit, but I was again down the rabbit hole. Talk sport kept popping
Juicy,
up. What's
juicy,
that?
juicy.
A wee bit, just more of the same, really. He to this day he holds that he had AJ up 5-4 after 9 rounds in the Usyk 2 fight. And it was a live talk sports show. There was Jordan, they were at the weigh-in of some fight anyway. And Catterall and Jordan kind of pulled him up on it. He's like, "You had him up 5-4." And he stuck to his guns. So again, this is where the whole rabbit hole started with Usyk. I went back and I watched Usyk AJ 2 from start to finish, obviously focusing on the first 9 rounds. So one, clearly Usyk. 2 and 3 were closer in terms of Joshua had wee moments. But I go back to what we were talking about a minute ago. Was Usyk ever in trouble in rounds 2 and 3? He wasn't. So I think 1, 2, and 3 are clearly Usyk. 4 was more so Usyk. He planted his feet and you could see he was starting to get control in the fight. Number 5, more of the same. He was actually grinning. I don't know if you remember. He was grinning and dropping his hands to AJ, basically asking him to come on. Basically taking the mickey out of him, like, with those big psycho eyes. And when AJ tried to come in, he was catching him. Then there's round 6. So round 6 was the first round, in my opinion, where AJ started to get any traction. And what I mean by that is he backed Usyk up for roughly about 20 seconds in the round. So if you're a big homer and you want to be on the AJ train, right, with skewed eyes, I think if you're the guide, you could probably give him 6. Okay. No, I didn't see it that way. I had a 10-9 Usyk. So this is through 6. Usyk is 6 rounds to 0 up. 7, clear 10-9 to Usyk. So that's 7-0 up. And then Joshua won 8 and 9. And I'll give it to him. He did win them rounds. Round 9 was his best round. But the point I'm making in a very long way, so thanks for letting me ramble, is even if you're an AJ homer and you're completely in that camp, I think the best card that you can give AJ is a 6-3 deficit or 5-3 deficit and you half one of the rounds. There's just no planet in the solar system where AJ won was up after 9 rounds. I mean, I know you feel the same. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, really. It's just
I had it 7-2 after 9 rounds, and then
exact same. Yeah,
also pulled away with it after that, didn't he?
completely, mate. Completely. That's exactly what I had it watching the back 7-2, and then Usyk just went through the gears. Now again, to give AJ his credit, it was a much better performance. Now, you couldn't have got much worse, bar getting sparked out in the first one. But he did do better. He made adjustments. He did cut off the ring in 8 and 9 at times. But this is what I'm saying. Just because he did better doesn't mean he was banking rounds at all. And again, for all the grief we give certain people, I'll give Bean his due. There was no real hometown judging from him. Like he was kind of similar in what we're saying. He said AJ was having better moments, but him and whoever was commentating with him had him down 6-0 as well. Yeah, mate, I don't know. I'm not trying to dig up old stuff, but I don't see how you can put your name on 5-4 AJ after nine rounds. To me, it's impossible. But
7-2 Usyk after 9, and then 10, 11, 12 Usyk just went through gears, didn't he?
yeah, yeah. So that's
You
a
know,
10 round just to
you
scorecard.
couldn't give him 5 rounds out of 24, Joshua, could you?
No.
You well to give him 5, wouldn't you?
We'll put it like this. If we're only giving him 2 in the second fight where he noticeably did better, how can you give him more than 2 in the first fight?
Exactly. So it's like 20 rounds to 4, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, max. Again, I'll always give AJ credit for taking that fight in the first place. I know the whole thing rode undisputed. He would have had to drop a belt to do it. But I do give him credit for taking the fight. He signed up, he showed up for the rematch, obviously getting paid a bucket of money. But it just showed levels. But listen, with the way the GK is handling this whole situation, it kind of paints AJ in a better light. At least he got him with him twice.
Yeah. What do you think could happen if the big GK pulled out of this one and retired or something? What would happen?
I don't know. It would be legacy defining for all the wrong reasons. Um, some of the lads put a comment on one of your videos there. I think it was yesterday as well. And it's a brilliant point of there's been no pullouts for Furies in some of these layups, like some of these simple fights. There's no freak injuries there. There's no whatever the case may be. It seems like things only come into question when it's Klitschko 2 or when it's Usyk 1 or when there's something really, really there to lose. Like every trainer, every fighter says it. You're very, very, very lucky if you go into a fight 100% ever, you know? And obviously as you get older, that gets worse and worse. So I doubt Fury hasn't been 100% physically well in any of his, probably since Klitschko won. But how do, the delay, how do injuries so bad or hold up so bad that are delaying fights? Why do they only coincidentally happen in the massive ones?
Because
It's
it's because his arsehole slapping.
Oh my
That's what it
goodness.
is. Flat, 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 flat. The flappinator. The arsehole flappinator.
You always have a poetic way of putting these points to bed, bud. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
I'm only saying what the man in the street's saying, aren't
Oh, absolutely. It's music to my ears.
I?
Yeah. But you know what? His brother Sheehan kind of pulled back, or not, sorry, he didn't pull back, but he pulled back some of my respect. I always liked him. And not that I don't now. I just thought that the way he handled the whole Simon Jordan discussion, where he got banned and Sheehan kind of said, oh, he's been talking bad about my brother. I didn't like that, but I love the fact that he's come out and held Hunk to the sword, where he said his whole back and forth with Fracci is just cringe. One word for it. It's cringe. I love that. You know what I mean? No BSing, no sugarcoating, straight to the point, because cringe is what it is, man. So I'm glad Sheehan is back on the truth train. It's good for everybody in boxing.
Yeah, yeah, good old Shane riding to the rescue on his white horse.
I know there might be a bit of that to it as well, but you got to give it to the fella. You love him or hate him, he does make for a good interview. When he's honest, I think there's no denying that. Now there might be a bit of an agenda behind it, but I still think he makes a good interview. So I'll generally get a lasp or a gas watching him. But
It's good cop, bad cop, and it? Shane's good cop. The bad cop, aren't they? Tyson and old man, pop, pop, bang.
big time, good cop. That's a good one for him.
Have you heard up? Has anybody heard up from Pop Pop Bang?
Hunk, or who you talking about?
Big John Fury, big fighting man. I'm in
I don't
hiding.
know.
I'm in hiding.
I don't know anybody by that name, sir. I just know somebody that goes by the acronym of Hunk. So um haven't
Oh,
heard haven't heard much out of the Hunk recently.
the
Um
hunk's missing in action.
he must be out trying to court a few ladies or something. I'm not quite sure, but he's not been in front of a camera. I don't know. I mean, I think, the whole talk of him and roly poly and all that, I think that's already fizzling out. You can see it. There's I think people are interested in the media that comes with it because it's a good laugh and everybody, it's something to watch for a day. But I think ultimately nobody wants to see, like, I think, who was it recently? James Toney fought somebody, and the two boys were in their 50s. I don't know if it was Holyfield, maybe it was, but it was under Thriller or Triller, whatever they're called, that did the Jake Paul fights initially. Obviously, it's a freak show. These boys are in the 50s. The fight should have never happened. But the one thing you can give James Toney, I know he's had the PED stuff, and I know he didn't take his career seriously, but at his peak, James Toney was a monster. He was excellent. So I don't want to see two 50-year-old lads that were unbelievable in their day get into the ring. So I certainly don't want to see, two messers, for want of a better expression, get in there. Like, it wouldn't be different if it was good to watch for one round. I highly doubt there would be a 5-second stretch of that fight that would be enjoyable. Between Roly Poly and Mr. Hunk. So
Yeah,
hopefully it's dying a death. I think it is, but hopefully so.
yeah,
Excuse
it
me.
looks to have died a death. Roly Poly's trying to nick a few quid, isn't he? And the hunk, well, we've seen what he's about, haven't we? Hey, if it makes
Oh,
if it makes business sense according to the hunk.
oh, big time. But again, if it makes business, I think if it makes business sense for him, it's one thing. The Cobra wants it to make business sense for a charity, and fair play to him for doing that. I don't know how much interest there is from the other side, like we talked about before, if the money is going to charity. So no, yeah, hopefully. I mean, you would think that the max Tyson's ever going to fight again, you would think is going to be. I know he said 5 fights. That's hot air. I would think it's going to be max 2 fights. I think he fights Usyk and wins, and fights a winner of AJ and Ganu if he even fights a second fight, or he fights Usyk and loses, and then does the rematch. Um, and I think win, lose, or draw in that rematch, I think he probably hangs it up. Um, and I think when that does happen, I think a lot of this other noise that comes with the Fury camp, i.e., from Mr. Hunk, I think a lot of that will fizzle out when Tyson retires.
How would we cope without the hunk?
Oh, I've no idea, pal. I've no idea. Somebody else is going to have to come in and take the torch. Um,
The hunk doesn't need an agent, does he? He just puts an Insta post out, doesn't he? And that's it. He sends everything into meltdown, doesn't it?
oh, he breaks a box on the internet every time he posts something. Oh my goodness. Oh,
But
he's
I
so.
couldn't believe it, when he called the Cobra out.
It's just. I was surprised, but I wasn't at the same time. It's another one of them tactics where I think he knows deep down nothing's ever going to come of it. It's like
What if he doesn't know? Because he is crackers, isn't he?
he is, but again, it's built in. I think you described Conor Benn potentially fighting Manny Pacquiao, and you summed it up perfectly. You go in and you either beat an 8th division world champion or you lose to him, i.e., there's no real loss for you in it. Obviously, you could get sparked out, you could become a meme for a couple of weeks, but you either lost to an all-time great or you beat him. So either way, you win. There's
Yeah.
no real. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's correct. Well, I did say that. I've always said that it's a win-win for Conor Benn, isn't it? Whether he wins or loses.
Mm-hmm. Regardless, and it would be the exact same for Big John if he went in against a Cobra. If by some miracle, and I mean an absolute aberration, he caught the Cobra on the chin and knocked him out, then we would never get rid of Hunk. He would be here forever. Um,
Oh, the Hunk could be unbearable, but Sky Anchor, wouldn't it, on Sky Sports?
oh mate, he'd
Got
be all.
caller at top brass at Sky.
Oh my goodness, it would be a living nightmare for quite a minute. But
Hey,
let's say the miracle doesn't happen and the Cobra goes in and dismantles him. Then it'll be, I fought a British Hall of Fame, or I fought a British great. I fought a Hall of Famer. I fought this revered boxer. Like it was the same when Tommy fought Jake and the build up. This Jake Paul's a bum. He's a scumbag. He's a disgrace to boxing. As soon as the dust settled in the ring, respect to the Pauls. I love these guys. I love what they're doing. I love what they're about. We would love to get it on again. That's how quick it would change. If Froch did discipline him, which I'm absolutely positive that he would. So I think it's a no lose for for the hunk, no doubt about it.
yeah, the Hunk would have got the pasting of his life, really, wouldn't he?
Oh, Swiss cheese. God damn, it would be and again, this is another reason I don't think it would ever happen. I don't think Froch would have the stomach to go in and go half pelt. And I don't think Froch would want to go in and destroy him either, because he's an older man, all joking aside. So nah, it's a win-win for Big John, but it's not going to happen, pal. Not ever. Thank God.
Roch's 14 stone, man.
What? Sorry, one more time.
Roch's 14 stone.
It would probably be 13 too many in that fight, I would think. But
Big John's about 20 all day, isn't he, really?
yeah, he's
So
a
he's six
big
stone
man.
heavier and 13-year older.
Mm, but what'll they always say? I know we have to jump the other link, but they say what a great big one beats a great little one. This would be a great little one versus a no name big one. So not a fight.
Yeah. Well, it's all ended amicably, hasn't it now, and it's gone away now.
It
So,
has.
gonna go on to part two, mate.
Yes, sir. Jumping right on. Nice one.